اللي بيفخر واللي بيقتل المدنيين مجرم.
Good afternoon and thank you for joining us on FutureTV. I'm Linda Tamim and these are today's top stories. Israeli jets bombard an area on the Lebanon-Syria border, reportedly hitting a Hezbollah position, citing security reasons. The army releases the image of a dangerous fugitive, calling on whoever acknowledges him to report to the military institution. And clashes erupt between Israeli police and Palestinian protesters at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in Jerusalem's Old City. Israeli jets have bombarded an area on the Lebanon-Syria border, reportedly hitting a Hezbollah position. This is according to a Lebanese security source and the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, which confirms the target was a Hezbollah missile base. Reports say the two air raids took place near Nabi Sheet, a remote village in the eastern Bekaa Valley. Residents in Nabi Sheet reported hearing several explosions late on Monday, but nature of the blast was unclear. Lebanon's state news agency also confirmed the airstrikes. However, there was no immediate confirmation from Lebanese security officials. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel is doing all the necessary to ensure its security. A suspect has been arrested for making bombs and transporting weapons and ammunition in the southern city of Tyre. The national news agency says the Lebanese national, identified as Saifuddin MR, has several outstanding arrest warrants against him. The Internal Security Forces Intelligence Bureau, which carried out the arrest, has since turned him over to an ISF station in Al Abbasiyeh. Lebanese President Michel Sleiman says he hopes a government policy statement will be approved before March the 5th. He says he hopes that the statement will be granted Parliament's vote of confidence ahead of the International Support Group on Lebanon's meeting in Paris, set for March the 5th and the 6th. Sleiman made his remarks before a delegation of ambassadors from the countries included in the group. He says the Paris meeting is aimed at assessing what was achieved by the support group meeting in New York in September, and carried on saying it should outline the necessary measures to support Lebanon on the political, economic and military levels. The Paris meeting will focus on humanitarian aid to help improve the situation of displaced Syrians in Lebanon, boosting the capabilities of the Lebanese army and tackling Lebanon's economy. The number of Syrian refugees in Lebanon had surged to around 900,000, according to the UNHCR, as Lebanon has been facing difficulties in coping with their burden. The army has released the image of a dangerous fugitive, calling on whoever acknowledges him to report to the military institution. The Army command circulated the picture online, pointing out that the suspect had committed dangerous crimes. On Monday, the Lebanese armed forces captured 2 of 3 inmates who escaped from Lebanon's main jail in Rumye. The third, who is on the run, is Syrian citizen Muhannad Abdul Rahman. The Army recently has released the pictures of several wanted men. Former Guantanamo Bay detainee Moazzam Beg is among 4 people arrested in Britain on suspicion of Syria-related terror offences. Police say Beg, 45, was arrested on suspicion of attending a terrorist training camp and facilitating terrorism overseas. Beg was held in Guantanamo Bay, the detention camp at a U.S. naval base on Cuba, for nearly 3 years after being arrested in 2002. He was released without charge in 2005. A 44-year-old woman and her son, aged 20, were held on suspicion of facilitating terror abroad, as was 36-year-old man at separate address. The 3 homes were being searched by officers from the West Midlands Counter-Terrorism Unit, while vehicles and electronic equipment were being removed for forensic analysis. Police say all 4 arrests were connected and the suspects are being held at a police station in the Birmingham area. And coming up next, a rare and mysterious polio-like illness may have afflicted up to 25 children in California. That and more after the break. Welcome back. Israeli police has entered Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in Jerusalem's Old City to disperse stone-throwing Palestinian protesters. The clashes came as Parliament was to debate a bill calling for Israeli sovereignty over the compound, Islam's third holiest site, which is currently administered by Jordan. Police used stun grenades to disperse the Palestinians as tensions were mounting ahead of discussions expected in the Israeli parliament later today of a plan to annex the site, known to Jews as the Temple Mount. Palestinian medics say 15 protesters were injured by rubber bullets. The Al-Aqsa compound, which lies in Jerusalem's Old City, is a flashpoint because of its significance to both Muslims and Jews. Outgoing Housing Minister Brahim Mahlab has been named Egypt's new prime minister and tasked with forming of government after the previous military-installed cabinet resigned. The government of Prime Minister Hazem al-Biblawi resigned en masse on Monday in a surprise move ahead of a presidential poll that is likely to bring outgoing defense minister and army chief Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to power. Reports say Mahlab has met with interim President Adli Mansour, who officially tasked him with forming a new government. Mahlab, an engineer, was a member of the National Democratic Party of Hosni Mubarak, who was toppled after 30 years in power by an Arab Spring-inspired uprising in 2011. Opposition activists in Venezuela have erected roadblocks across parts of the capital, Caracas, halting transportation in an attempt to escalate the ongoing political standoff. Demonstrators manning barricades in a suburb in eastern Caracas say they will not end the blockade until safety improved in one of the most violent countries in Latin America. The White House says it is deeply concerned about the violence in Venezuela and is alarmed by the country's use of security forces on protesters. White House spokesman Jay Carney says Washington has been notified that 3 of its consular officers are being expelled from the country.
We are concerned, and we've made clear that with our OAS and regional partners, the Organization of American States and our regional partners, we are working to urge calm and encourage a genuine dialogue among all Venezuelans. As President Obama said in Mexico last week, rather than trying to distract from its own failings by making up false accusations against the United States, which the government there has, the Venezuelan government ought to focus on addressing the legitimate grievances of the Venezuelan people. Another way of putting this is that when President Maduro calls for a dialogue with the U.S. president and an exchange of ambassadors, he should focus instead on a dialogue with the Venezuelan people. Because that is what is at issue here. This is not about the United States. The government of Venezuela needs to release detained protesters immediately. It also needs to stop impeding the work of independent journalists and restricting information sharing via television, radio, and the internet. Freedom of expression and peaceful assembly are universal human rights. They are essential to a functioning democracy, and the Venezuelan government has an obligation to protect these fundamental freedoms.
Ukraine's parliament put off plans to vote on the formation of a national unity government until Thursday to allow consultations to continue. Alexander Tereshnikov, the Speaker of the Assembly and the acting president, has told members of parliament at the weekend that they had until Tuesday to form a new cabinet and appoint a new prime minister. He insists the vote should be held on Thursday. Politicians have been trying to stabilize the country after the disappearance of President Viktor Yanukovych and months of violence. A presidential election campaign has already started. The Ukrainian Central Election Commission posted an election calendar online earlier today, giving candidates until April the 4th to register. Elections are due to be held on May the 25th. Yanukovych's whereabouts remain unknown after he left the capital of Kiev at the weekend. Ukrainian authorities have issued an arrest warrant for him over his alleged role in the killing of protesters by security forces. Moving on to Asia, South Korea and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea have ended the reunion of families separated for more than 60 years, the first in more than 3 years. Hundreds of South Koreans returned this afternoon by bus to a resort hotel in South Korea's east coastal city of Seocho, where they left for the mountain resort in the DPRK's southeast coast. A second group of 357 elderly South Koreans met their separated family members and relatives in the DPRK in the Mamkumgang resort for 3 days throughout today. After the first group of 82 South Korean applicants ended their 3-day reunion event last Saturday, a tearful scene was seen when the separated Koreans held the last day's 1-hour gathering before parting with each other once again. Government data says more than 70,000 South Koreans have been on the waiting list for the family reunion since 1988, with all the applicants expected to pass away within 20 years from now due to their old age. And in the United States, a rare and mysterious polio-like illness may have afflicted up to 25 children in California, several of whom have suffered limb paralysis. Medical researchers say health experts are struggling to identify the cause of the ailment. Since 2002, between 20 and 25 previously healthy children from across California have shown signs of the illness, possibly caused by an infectious virus. The American Academy of Neurology says in a statement detailing the research of 2 California neurologists, one of the children remains in serious condition, but none have died from the syndrome. Stanford University pediatric neurologist Keith Van Haren says the cases could indicate the possibility of an emerging infectious polio-like syndrome in California, although federal health officials say there were too few cases to consider the spread of the ailment as an imminent threat. Polio, eradicated in the United States over 3 decades ago, is an infectious virus that can permanently paralyze or kill victims within hours of infection. A study of 5 California children have affected by the mystery ailment found they experienced the sudden paralysis of 1 or more limbs, with the symptoms reaching the height of severity within 2 days.
Prognosis that we've seen so far is not good. Most of the children we've seen have not recovered use of their arm or leg. We want to emphasize that this is extremely rare. We're reporting 5 cases. There are preliminary reports of several more from the CDPH, but this is at a very preliminary stage. We appreciate the help in getting the word out to physicians and families, but we want to emphasize that this is not a common phenomenon. We think it's a rare manifestation of a rare virus.
By the time the weakness brings parents to the emergency room or to the attention of their pediatrician or child neurologist, there may already be a fair amount of damage, but at the same time, because we don't know exactly what's happening, we have limited ability to treat. We have seen several patients who had received fairly aggressive treatments with high-dose steroids or plasma exchange or intravenous immunoglobulins, and we don't have the impression this has modified at all the outcome of the patients.
Samsung has unveiled the latest addition to its Galaxy smartphone lineup. Complete with fingerprint scanner for mobile payments, the Galaxy S5 was the focus of a glitzy launch event on the sidelines to the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. The new model is waterproof, dustproof, and features an improved camera. It is also the first smartphone on the market to have a built-in heart sensor, as Samsung continues its push toward connected devices and an increasingly fitness-conscious consumer base. Lighter and less bulky than last year's Galaxy Gear, the Galaxy Gear 2 and Galaxy Fit appear to address the criticisms that have plagued their predecessor. The watches are the first devices operating on the company's new Tizen system, as the company tries to distance itself from Google's Android platform and show that it is not just a fast follower of innovation, but a trailblazer too. The growing importance of wearable devices is one of the main themes of this year's Mobile World Congress. This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our headlines. Israeli jets bombard an area on the Lebanon-Syria border, reportedly hitting a Hezbollah position, citing security reasons. The army releases the image of a dangerous fugitive, calling on whoever acknowledges him to report to the military institution. And clashes erupt between Israeli police and Palestinian protesters at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in Jerusalem's Old City. Those are your Tuesday headlines from us here at Future Television. I'm Linda Tsamin, thanking you all for tuning in today.
اللي بيفخر واللي بيقتل المدنيين مجرم.